Good evening. Good evening, everybody, or good afternoon. We're going to talk about habits of students, great habits that you should learn to possess if you're a student. Even if you're not a student, it's never too late to learn these. And that will be very helpful in your career. And next week, I'm going to look at teachers. We're going to talk about teachers and managers, what skills they should possess so that they can also be leaders in their schools or in their businesses. So we're going to have an interesting time. I'm not turning on the comments. So if you have a question, go down. At the bottom, there's a square with a question mark in it. You can ask your questions there. But I'm not going to turn on the comments because I think it's just clearer without the comments. But feel free to ask questions. So today we're going to talk about good habits that students possess. That's right, there are no comments. You will be able to ask your questions. Someone has asked about comments in the question box. So ask your questions in the box. All right. Good habits that students should possess. So what's the aim of this live? It's to make you aware of what I consider strengths are, or your strengths, and possibly your weaknesses, and to motivate us to improve. That is, I think, very critical. Not only to be aware of what we're naturally good at or what we're weak at, and some of us already know this, but then to motivate us to change. Why do we want to change? We want to change if we want to be more successful. And most of us have that aim to be more successful. So we're going to take inventory of our skill set, and then we're going to try to hopefully set ourselves on a path to improve our skills. What's the key reflection? Reflection is when you think about something. We can also say you ponder. To ponder is to think for a long time on something. It can be anything. So what's the key reflection? Actually, reflections is to understand what you possess in large amounts, what you possess in smaller amounts, and then to reflect on whether the ones you don't possess as much are important for you. Each person has their own individual priorities, inclinations, predispositions. Predispositions mean that these are naturally part of who you are. And so some areas are more difficult to change than others. These are our predispositions, our DNA sort of dictates. But most of these, I contend, you can work on and you can change, because I've made a very concerted effort over my career to improve the areas that I was weak on in order to have sort of a complete array of skills that, so you don't want one weakness to sort of ruin all of the good skills. And that, sadly, that can happen if we're not careful. So if we improve most of them, that will help. Does communication affect students' confidence? I think very much. We're going to talk about communication in the very first section on social. So let's look at the next slide. We're gonna break this into 3 categories. But before I do, I want to make one disclaimer. Now, a disclaimer is something like a notice, because those listening to me are attending schools or universities at various levels. Some of you are blessed or fortunate with very good teaching, very good education. Others of you aren't. But what I'm going to talk about today does not take into account the quality of your education. I'm going to assume that I'm going to remove that excuse from this discussion. And I want you to think about, these are things you can improve regardless of the quality of your education. So that should give all of us hope, whether you're at a posh private school or one of the, perhaps a public school that hasn't performed so well. It doesn't matter. You can still Work on these things to improve yourself, to put yourself in a chance to be successful in a career later. So let's begin. First, I want to talk about discipline. There are 3 aspects I'm going to look at: discipline, social, and then performance. But first, let's look at discipline. Before I embark on this, embark means to begin. Before I embark, I want to just take a look at any of the questions. All right. Discipline. Now, keep in mind, this is within the context of education, either at university or in school, but these principles can be applied elsewhere. What's habit number 1 that you should adopt? Preview and review lessons. All of us are given homework or things to read, and it's very rare that I see a student consistently prepared for the lessons. So if you want to have a huge head start on the competition, then this is one way to do it. Prepare yourself. This requires discipline. Going to bed at a decent time or working when you should be working. Why is this important? The more prepared you are, the more you get out of the lesson. So you learn faster or quicker than others who aren't prepared. But there's a career implication. Implication means that there is a direct relationship with your career. Those who are prepared win or are more successful than those who aren't. It's very obvious. If I'm hiring somebody, I'm hiring the person that comes to the interview, that shows up for the 3-week or 3-month trial period at work, prepared, on time and prepared. This is a simple skill, but it takes a lot of dedication, a lot of discipline. So prepare yourself, be prepared, because this habit in school, in university, will carry over into your career. And so you want to have this, you want to adopt this and practice it. Secondly, the second habit, go beyond the textbook in pursuit of knowledge. In other words, be intellectually curious and motivated. People who are motivated and intellectually curious ask the same question, why or how? And they look and they try to find out. People who are curious or motivated will improve faster. They will improve beyond what's expected. And these are the people who will get the promotions. These are the people who will move up to manager or director, because they're always learning, because they're hungry for knowledge. Now, here's a question students often ask. What if I don't like the subject? Or what if I don't like the teacher? And often the teacher, if you like the teacher or don't like the teacher, this directly affects how you like the class. I understand that. This is a challenge, especially for younger students. If you're in university, you can overcome this. You have life skills, I think, to overcome this. But my suggestion is the following. Remove the obstacles for a moment. Put aside the things you don't like. Maybe you don't like all the people in the class, or you don't like the teacher, or you don't like the way the teacher's teaching, or you don't like the subject. Now, this is the most difficult aspect. Here is what I challenge you to do, and this is what leaders do. Find something in that subject. Find an aspect, whatever it is. Find something, however small, that you really enjoy. And then seize on that, focus on that, and use that as your motivation in this subject. So let me give you an example of English. Let's say I don't like English, but I know I need to learn English because I need a better career. So what I do is the following. I ask myself, this is a personal issue. You're going to have to ask yourself, what is it that motivates me? What is important? I don't like English, but what do I like that's related to English? So, an example, I might like to write stories. So story writing, fiction writing, or poetry, whatever. This is interesting. And now this then will involve English. And suddenly now my perception of English changes because I'm focusing on what I really like. Let me give you another example. Let's say I want to be a business owner and I want to own a big business. A big business means probably it's international, which means you have to deal with people abroad, people in other countries. And that requires the use, in most cases, of English. So you might not like English per se, but you really love business and you love international business or this idea of building a business. So what I suggest you do is focus on, okay, the business and your desire to do that. And then you bring in English into that dream, your dream of business, bring English into that. And suddenly that subject of English will take on a different flavor, a different view, and you will appreciate it a bit more because you understand how important it is. If you're motivated and intellectually curious, you will learn faster and you will remember things longer. So try to get that. You know you're motivated or curious if you're doing things that aren't required by the teacher. That tells you that you're motivated or that you're curious or both. All right, I will answer a question before we move to the next section. We're going to talk about, someone asked how to impress my teacher. We're going to look at that very subject in a minute. We're moving to social skills now. So we've talked about discipline, disciplining yourself to do the right things. That doesn't require, it requires an ability to, overcome your sort of bad habits and force yourself to do things that you should be doing. That's discipline. Let's look at social, because social skills are hugely important in your success. And of course, English is a part of that equation. So let's take a look at what I feel are really important social skills that you can develop in school and at university, or even in your work. If you're already after university, you can employ these in your work environment or wherever you're at. Get involved in class discussions or group discussions with the teacher and with other students. So here's how somebody asked, how do you get along with your teacher? One of the ways is to involve yourself in the class. Everybody, anybody who's speaking in front of you appreciates involvement, interesting questions, and a willingness to listen and observe. And people who are good at speaking or good at teaching will notice you. So, why is this habit important? It's important because, first of all, you're active in the class. Anyone who's active in the class will automatically learn more than those who are passive, those who are just sitting like this. That's passive. If you're active, you learn more. So be active, even if you're shy. If you see at the bottom, even if you're shy, that's not an excuse. You can start, if you're shy, start with little things. Start by raising your hand. Do make little steps to progress, but you want to engage yourself in the discussions. You learn a lot more about yourself, about other people, and about the subject. All right. And this is a key career skill as well. You will you will have a lot of practice working with others. And let me just say one more thing about this. In university in England and America, but especially in the UK, if you want to go to universities there are lots of group activities at the university level. And the reason there are a lot of group activities is because international companies, English employers know that if you're going to be successful, you have to be able to work in groups, not in isolation. Now, of course, if you're a programmer, that's different. But for most of us, we're going to be working in groups, even if it's remotely, we'll be part of a group that we have to sort of get along with, integrate and not isolate. So this is great practice for success in the corporate world or in any organization where there are people that you have to deal with. So get involved early to gain experience. I can tell you that this is a really critical skill. I didn't know about this skill when I was growing up. If someone would have told me it, I would have gotten more involved. I didn't see a need to get involved because I didn't know how important it would be. Now I see the importance and I'm telling you about it. All right. Let me take a look at a few of the questions. All right, these are very specific questions about personal language issues, so I'm going to skip those for the moment. I want to look at general issues related to these topics. So here's number 3. Let's look at number 4. This is one that's overlooked by everybody or most people. Be helpful. Be helpful. This relates to the previous slide of working in teams. If you're helpful, that's a great asset to any team. Collaboration, working with others, helping others is a great quality that you should develop if you want to be successful and move up in any corporate structure. Work well with others. And the way to work well with others is not just to integrate and talk to them, but to help them. Be helpful with other students and other teachers. So somebody asked, how do you ingratiate yourself? This is a big word. I will spell it. Ingratiate, I-N-G-R-A-T-I-A-T-E. How do you ingratiate yourself? That means to make yourself liked. How do you ingratiate yourself with a teacher? By engaging in the lessons, by asking questions. But let me tell you something that's interesting. When you move to a company, a corporate structure, you want to use these same skills with your boss. You want to ingratiate yourself by getting involved, showing real interest in the team projects so that the business succeeds. And when the business succeeds and you have these activities and habits and practices, you will also succeed. So this is a skill that you carry on from school and university, and you continue to apply it in the corporate structure. When I was going to school, if somebody was friendly with a teacher, it was a negative. Everyone looked down on them, and we have a phrase in English known as don't be a teacher's pet. A pet is like a dog or a cat. Don't be a teacher's pet, or they're the teacher's pet, which means the teacher likes them, and everyone else would look down on them or criticize them. This is the wrong way to look at that. That's a skill that you need to develop. You want to be able to get along with other students, be helpful with other students and with the teacher, which later will be your boss. All right. Get along with others in the group. This is super important for those who want to succeed in any organization. How do you get along with others? This is really, really important. And this is why in the UK they have lots of group activities. And in interviews in the UK, when you go, and also in America, when you go for interviews in large corporations, oftentimes there will be group activities with people you don't know, and they observe how you get along with other people. Now, this is interesting because in high school we generally we're friendly with only the people we like. In university, perhaps it's a little bit less that case. We don't form cliques or groups quite so strongly. But I want to challenge you to learn to get along. You don't have to be close friends, but learn to get along with everyone, even those you don't naturally like. Because when you're in a career, when you're in a job, you're going to be around people. Some you like, some you love, others you don't care for. But your ability to get along with everybody will often it will often determine how successful you are in that organization. So, it's a great life skill. No one told me about it. I learned about it later through experiences. People like to work with those whom they like. If they like you, you have a very good chance of staying around or being promoted. People like to work with people they like. That's a natural sort of phenomenon. So learn to work and get along with others. Use this as a test. The next time you're around somebody that you don't quite get along with, remember this webinar or this live and think, okay, here's a test. Let's see if I can get along with them and be polite. I don't have to be overly friendly, but I can be cordial and polite. And this is a skill that if you learn early will pay dividends later. To pay dividends is what, if you own stocks, if you're investing, your stock, what you own, pays dividends. So dividends are extra bonuses. It will pay dividends to be nice to everyone or friendly or get along later in your career. All right, I'm done with that section, but let's take a look at any questions we might have. Okay, this is a great question. I'm an introvert, so how can I communicate with my teacher, especially with my honors teacher? That's a really good question. I would begin by asking questions. So if in your class, in your subject, you're going to have things you don't actually know about or you're confused about. Begin by asking them questions. Maybe after class, one-on-one, eventually drumming up the courage to ask your question in front of everyone else. But I would begin by asking questions that are genuine questions. That's a way to begin communicating with your teacher and break down that barrier between student and teacher. Ask questions about the subject. All right. Let's move on to the next one. And now we're entering the final aspect, the final area, which is performance. This is important. How well do you perform? Get good grades. Now, if you want to be successful in your career, you have to perform well. If you don't perform well, businesses don't make money, or you're not an effective teacher, and students don't want to take lessons from you, and you don't make money. So performance matters. So we have to be able to perform. That involves, in school, understanding the subject. Do I understand the subject? Now, let's say I don't like the teacher so much, or the subject. Doesn't matter. If you're thinking long-term about your career, what you want to think about is, okay, this is going to be a challenge. How can I get a good grade, even though it's not my favorite subject, even though it's not my favorite teacher? Use this as a challenge for the future, because guess what? You're going to have similar obstacles later in your life. So the ability to adapt to a teacher's requirements or to the parameters. Parameters are what's expected of you in the class. The ability to understand what they are and do well is a skill, even if you're not excited about the subject. I want to say one thing about getting good grades. Most of the time, we don't get good grades because we don't work hard enough. That's my observation as a teacher. If you want to separate yourself from 90% of the people that I'm observing at university and in other places, work hard. It's so simple, but it takes discipline, it takes focus. Working hard will allow you to understand the subject in school, at university, and also allow you to succeed in your career. Develop a good work ethic. And that means studying hard as well. Now, this is one that almost no one appreciates. It's one that as I get older, I find it one of the most important skills that you can have and that you need to develop if you want to be successful in your teaching career or any business career that you decide to get involved in. An ability to accurately assess your own performance. Very difficult in the beginning, but later, over time, you need to develop this. Why is it so important? Because if you can assess yourself, you become your own teacher, and you can then begin to improve. So for example, if I'm meant to give a presentation, I can record that presentation before I give it at university or school. And if I have an ability to accurately assess myself, I can watch it and make improvements. Fewer than 2% of the people I meet do that. So if you start to do it, you automatically put yourself in a very rare category. And this will allow you to succeed where others aren't. It's doing the extra things. Why is it also important? Because you avoid major embarrassments or failures. If you're able to assess yourself, you then know whether to say yes or no to certain jobs, to certain tasks, to certain assignments, because you know realistically you're not going to succeed in that. Even if it's temporarily a big promotion, the ability to assess yourself accurately is one of the most important skills you could ever have, for the two reasons I've just mentioned here. All right, finally, number 8, and we're finished. Think critically and creatively. Thinking critically exhibits, exhibit is exhibits, exhibits a logical mind. To think creatively exhibits a creative mind. And both of these skills at different times and in different jobs are hugely critical. Thinking critically is interesting and helpful in any business. Thinking creatively can perhaps put you ahead of the competition or entertain more people or whatever. Creative thinkers are interesting thinkers. Critical thinkers are interesting thinkers. And people like to be around interesting people. So if you want to know how to be interesting, learn to be more critical in your thinking, how to think critically, how to think in ways other people don't think in, and be creative. Now, these skills can be learned. You're not born with it. Now, I'm not born to be an artist, so I'm not creative that way. But I can be creative in other ways. I'm trying to be creative on Instagram, for example. So these two skills can be the difference between really moving up high in an organization or succeeding in anything you want to do. All right, let's take a look at questions before we conclude. All right. Someone has asked about would you deliver a session on communication skills? I have given a session on presentations. Look earlier in my posts, I've done one on presentations, but I can do one on communication. I think that's also very important, so thank you. Oh, this is a great one here. This is a great question. Now, let me tell you why I say it's a great question. Because not all questions are great. I just made a video on questions, students' questions. It's the second video. And this is a great question because it takes the information I've given and it moves it forward. That's why it's a great question. And how can you suggest some online group activities? I can suggest one straight away. 4 posts ago, I made a post on language exchanges, and a few of the people in that took the initiative. Initiative means they started on their own initiative, took the initiative, and they formed group chats. Now, this is one way to do it, because whenever you form groups, you start to deal with different people and you'll have different issues, different problems. This is okay. Embrace them. Embrace is to hug. Embrace the problems and try to overcome them. These are qualities of a good manager, a good director, or a good leader. So one way to get involved is go to the language exchange, look for the groups that have formed, the language groups, and that's an online group activity you can do. Another thing is just think of an activity you'd like to do and solicit or write or publish that you'd like to work with a few different people. So you can do anything. It can be with friends or people you just met, but it can be followers on your Instagram. Think of any task that interests you that involves or should involve more people, and just publicize it and do it. No one is holding you back from getting this valuable experience. Great question. All right, I'm going through. This is a really good question. Tremble is to shake. How can we not tremble? Tremble is to shake. When I started speaking in front of people, I trembled. I was nervous. I was stuttering. My throat was dry. We have a very big word for this. My throat was parched. Parched is P-A-R-C-H-E-D. My throat was parched. It was so dry because I was nervous. Now, I overcame this by practicing, doing it more and realizing and gradually becoming more comfortable and overcoming my fears. That's what I would recommend for most of you. Do it even if you're nervous. Now, there's a problem with saying everyone should do that because psychologically everyone's different, and a big failure or an embarrassment could, have a very negative effect. But for most people, it is the situation of just facing your fear and just doing it anyway, and you will gradually become less trembly. All right, this is an interesting question. Does communication affect students' confidence? Yes. Earlier I mentioned to participate in groups, in classes, in school. It's cool in school and university not to participate. That's being cool. That is not cool. It's actually much more beneficial to participate. So how do you gain more confidence? You participate, you give your opinion, and then you realize that it doesn't matter if people agree or disagree with you. You start to gain confidence that it's okay if people disagree. It's okay if they don't like what you said. And so you start to gain confidence through trial and error, through experience. So you want to keep practicing that and you'll become more confident in your communication. All right, lots on confidence. That's really helpful. All right. I will save the live. I will save the live. All right. I think, let's see here. I think we might. Let's go to the conclusions. If there are any other questions, I'll look at them. So what have I attempted to share with you today? That success in school and university, if you approach the key 8 areas that I've suggested, you can use these successes to be successful in your career. I'm going to use a big word here. To parlay, you can use these habits in school, formed in school and university, to parlay them into a successful career. To parlay is like to use, to springboard, or to use them as to be successful in your career. Now, I understand one thing very clearly, that not all students who are successful in school, if you're not successful in school, I know that there are people that become very successful outside of school in their careers, and they were bad students but successful in their careers. I understand that, but let me just explain something. The skills I'm talking about, you will have to learn somewhere. You can learn them in school and university because you're going there every day, in school at least, or you can learn them at the School of Hard Knocks, which is what I've mentioned here. This is an idiom. The School of Hard Knocks is life experience. You can learn them through life, but the point is you still have to learn them. You still have to, if you want to build a big organization or be successful in a big organization, you have to get along with people, even those you don't like. You have to be helpful to people. You have to be prepared. You have to be motivated. All of these things that I've discussed, you have to learn somewhere. It doesn't have to be school, but most of us are in school, so we might as well learn it there. But you can also learn it on the street, via the School of Hard Knocks. That's no problem. And finally, how to be successful. Just 3 final comments on this. Practice good habits. Get into good habits. Just very, very simple. I think good sleep, getting up and being fresh and working on things that are important while you're freshest, this is a good habit. But whatever the good habits are, do it for a long period of time and you will see the results. Be consistent. Most people aren't consistent. Most people don't employ good habits over the long term. They'll start exercising in January and February, but by March they quit. Most people don't perform over the long term. If you perform good habits, if you're consistent over the long term with English, for example, I'm making a video on this, by the way, English and consistency. If you do this over the long term, you will be ahead of 90% of everyone else. It's a guarantee. Regardless of talent, you will be ahead because most people aren't willing to long-term practice good habits. So I'm going to make a video soon. I'm going to post it in the next few weeks. It's on how to improve your English. Most of us aren't employing good habits long term. We study English 1 hour and then 3 days later 30 minutes, and we're not consistent, and we're not doing it. We're not studying every day for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months. We're not doing that. So that's why you're not improving your English. It's because you're not consistent. You're not disciplining yourself. This is in most cases, not in every case, but in most cases, it's because of your work habits. Develop good habits in almost anything you put your hand to can succeed. And finally, be willing to do things that others aren't willing to do. Work longer. Be prepared better. Improve your areas. None of us has all of the full complement of these skills that I've mentioned. None of us has them perfectly down. So identify the ones that you can improve in. Be on time, be kind, do these little things, and these will add up into a successful career after your studies, or a successful business, and also in successful English. We're talking about English and learning English. Be consistent. Study every day. Most people don't study every day. So if you want to be ahead of most people, study every day. All right. Well, I want to thank you all for... we have a lot of questions. Let me take a look and then we will finish. Yes. Pay dividends. That's right. I use the word pay dividends. Pay dividends means that it will pay off later. A dividend is interest money that you make. But to pay dividends means it will help you later. Thank you very much. Hello. Nice to hear from all of you. Okay, someone's asked about speaking. If you go 5 posts back, there's a post on language exchange. And there you can freely look for people to talk with. And there are also WhatsApp groups. So look there for someone or a group to get a part of, especially the newest comments. There are hundreds of people looking. So take a look. Someone's asked about YouTube channel. I'm in the process of making a YouTube channel. I'm making my first videos now. It's taking a long time, but I will have a YouTube channel soon. Thank you for that question. I will announce it. I will talk about essays. I think it's time to do another live on essays. So I will talk about essays. I did it at the very beginning 6 months ago when I started, but I don't think that video is online. This is a question I've been talking about all of the live. How to get consistent in learning skills, which we want to improve. The first thing you do is do it every day. So here's what I do. I understand what's most important for me. And each day I give the most time to these areas that are most important, not that are easiest, not always that are most urgent, but what are most important. I'm thinking long term. And so every day, what's most important for me? Writing, that's a priority. I was writing all afternoon, so that's one priority. Teaching, preparing, and offering really quality presentations like this, like the webinars and courses I'll be giving on Instagram, and in university to be the best professor I can be. So those two things are really important. Preparation of lectures and seminars and writing. So how do you be consistent? Just do it every day. Even if you don't feel like it, I do it every day. And guess what? You start to feel like it. You start to enjoy it. And then if you don't do it every day, you start to miss it. And that's when you know you've developed a great habit. When you've gone from having to do it and suddenly you want to do it. And then you love doing it. And then you miss it if you don't do it. Yoga, I think, is similar to this. But for me, it's writing and thinking. I have to do it in some capacity, either preparing lectures or in writing articles and books. All right. Now, this is a great question. One that I hadn't expected. Can you teach about the English to use in literature and poetry? I surely can. At some point, we'll do a poetry live and we'll analyze language in poetry. Why don't the person who wrote that, why don't you send me a poem or two you're interested in and we will take a look at that. My lives are it's at the same time every Wednesday. It's the same time. So remember the time and come back. It hasn't changed for 6 months. I have been consistent. And that's what I'm asking you to do in your studies. Be consistent. It's every Wednesday, 7 o'clock. It's been like that for 7 months, and hopefully it will be like that for 7 more months. All right. Great. Great. All right. If I haven't answered your question, you can write me personally. This live will be recorded. It will be the first post on my profile so you can look at it. All right. Thank you all for a very interesting live. I wish you all the best. I hope you're motivated to improve and reach for higher levels. And I will see you all next Wednesday. Have a great evening, a great night, or a great afternoon. Bye-bye.